Jai Sanskar. Till the time we have discussed that why do organisms do reproduce and what is the importance of variation. In this segment, I am going to teach you about sexual reproduction. We are also familiar with the mode of reproduction that depends on involvement of two individuals before new generation can be created. નવી જનરેશન ક્રિએટ થાય એ પહેલાં બે અલગ અલગ ઇન્ડિવિજ્યુઅલની રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ હોય એવું રિપ્રોડક્શન છે, એનાથી આપણે ફેમિલિયર છીએ. Bulls alone cannot produce new calves, nor can hen alone produce new chicks. In such cases, both sexes, that is males and females, are needed to produce new generations. What is significance of sexual mode of reproduction? Are there any limitation of asexual mode of reproduction, and which we have been discussing about. So શું કરવા સેક્સ્યુઅલ રિપ્રોડક્શન એક ઓર્ગેનિઝમ પણ પોતાની અંદરથી બીજી ઓર્ગેનિઝમ જે છે એને જનરેટ કરવા માટે કેપેબલ છે. Then after there is a different kind of reproduction which is called sexual reproduction. The kind of reproduction in which only one organism is required is called asexual reproduction. આપણો કટ થયેલા સિલેબસનો ઘણો બધો મોટો એવો પાર્ટ છે આ ચેપ્ટરનો, that is right now not part of our syllabus for this 21st board exams, but if you have studied those part, you will understand that there are limitations, like accidentally sometimes spores are formed, accidentally organism is divided into two parts and then only two different parts can survive or grow. But due to sexual reproduction, the kind of offspring or kind of produce, end product of reproduction would have more variation as compared to the asexual reproduction. 8.3.1 Why sexual mode of reproduction? A creation of two cells from one involving copying of DNA as well as cellular apparatus. The DNA copying mechanism, as we have noticed, cannot be absolutely accurate, and resultant error are a source of variation in population of organism. Every individual organism cannot be protected by variations, but population variation are useful for ensuring the survival of species. It would therefore make sense if organism came up with reproductive mode that allow more and more variation to be generated. Asexual mode ની અંદર જેટલા વેરિએશન્સ આપણને જોવા ન મળે એટલા નંબર ઓફ વેરિએશન સેક્સ્યુઅલ રિપ્રોડક્શન થી પોસિબલ હતા. એવું નહોતું કે બધા જેટલા બી પોપ્યુલેશન આવી એ બધી great features વાળી જ હતી. There are some good features, certain bad features, but difficult situation ની અંદર survive કરવાની ability વધારે થઈ ગઈ. While DNA copying mechanisms are not absolutely accurate, they are precise enough to make generation of variation a fairly slow process. If DNA copying mechanism were to be less accurate, many of the resultant DNA copy would not be able to work with cellular apparatus and will die. So now can the process of making variant be speeded up? Is there any way કે આપણે આ વેરિએશન જે છે એ સ્પીડીલી કરી શકીએ? Each new variation is made in DNA copy that already has a variation accumulated from the previous generations. Thus, two different individuals in population would have quite different parent of accumulated variations. Since all of these variations are in living individuals, sorry for the inconvenience. Let's start with the second paragraph of topic 8.3.1. While DNA copying mechanisms are not absolutely accurate, they are precise enough to make generation of variation a fairly slow process. If the DNA copying mechanism were to be less accurate, many of the resultant DNA copies would not be able to work with the cellular apparatus and would die. So how can the process of making variant be speeded up? Each new variation is made in DNA copy that already has a variation accumulated from the previous generation. Thus, two different individuals in a population would have quite different appearances of accumulated variation. Since all the type of this variation are in living individual, it is assured that they do not have any really bad effect. Combining variations from two or more individuals would thus create a new combination of variants. Each combination would be novel since it would involve two different individuals. The sexual mode of reproduction incorporates such a process of combining DNA from two different individuals during the process called reproduction. So during reproduction, sexual reproduction, આપણને ખબર જ છે બે ઇન્ડિવિજ્યુઅલની રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ છે તો બેના જે ડીએનએ જે છે એ ઓલરેડી એની પહેલાંની ઘણી બધી જનરેશનના વેરિએશનને સાથે હશે જ. એ સિવાય થોડુંક વેરિએશન રિપ્રોડક્શન દરમિયાન પણ જનરેટ થશે ડીએનએને કોપીઈંગ ટાઈમે. બટ ધીસ ક્રિએટ મેજર ડિફિકલ્ટી ઇફ each new generation is not to be the combination of DNA copies from the pre-existing individual. Then each new generation will end up having twice the amount of DNA because two different individuals have their own set of DNA, and if reproduction would accumulate the DNA, then they will have twice the size of DNA from the previous generation. This is likely to be meshed up with the control of cellular apparatus of DNA. How many ways we think of for solving this difficulty? How can we think about it? How we can think like this? Like it will choose the best out of the two which is available. Okay. Like if male gametes are there, female gametes are, certain features are more dominant in male and certain features are more dominant in female. So if the best one is being chosen from what they are having, then DNA copying will have exact the same amount of DNA which is required, not the twice, because both are out of two, the best one is selected. So that could be a method. We have seen earlier that organisms become more complex, the specialization of tissue increases. One solution that many multicellular organisms have found problem of mention about to have a special lineage of cell in a specialized organ in which only half number of chromosomes and half amount of DNA as compared to the non-reproductive bodies. So ક્રોમોઝોમ્સની અંદર જ આ ડીએનએ છે તો ડીએનએ એટલા જ પ્રપોર્શનની અંદર હશે કે જેની રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ હોય એના કરતાં હાફ. તો હાફ ફ્રોમ ધ મેલ organism and half from the female organism, and that is how a complete set of DNA or acid or synthesis of protein would be take place. This achieved by a process of cell division called meiosis. Thus, when these germ cells form two individuals combined during sexual reproduction to form a new individual, it results in re-establishment of number of chromosomes and DNA content in new generation. Number of chromosomes as well as the DNA content in new generation. If the zygote is to grow and develop into organism which has highly specialized tissues and organs, then it has to have sufficient store of energy for doing this. In every simple organism, it is seen that the two germ cells are not very different from one another, or may even be similar, but body design become more complex. The germ cells also specialize. One germ cell is large and contains food store, while other similar and likely to be motile. એક germ cell જે છે એની પાસે food abundance હશે, ઘણી વધારે માત્રામાં ફૂડ હશે, અને એક બીજો germ cell હશે કે જેની પાસે મોટિલિટી હશે, મતલબ એક જગ્યાએથી બીજી જગ્યાએ જવા માટે એબલ હશે. Conventionally, the motile germ cell is called male gamete, and while the germ cell containing the stored food is called female gamete. We shall see in next few sections how do we need to create these two different type of gamete, give rise to difference in male and female reproductive organs, and in some cases difference in body of a male and female organism. So હ્યુમન્સની વાત કરીએ તો મેલ અને ફિમેલ બોડી જે છે there is a big difference between male and female body. Okay, so these are because reproduction required two different kind of bodies which is having a half number of chromosomes or half number of DNA which should be shared by these two, and offspring will have the required amount of DNA into it. The male germ cell which called male gametes and female germ cell would be called female gametes. When these two gametes fuse together, we will say that reproduction has occurred. Just after fertilization or just after this mating of these two germ cells, there should be requirement of food which is contained by ova, which is a female germ cell. So this is how not only this fertilization is end of reproduction, after that there is a growth of embryo. Okay, so that would be in the next segment. That's all for now. Thank you.